Well, I'm delighted to say that joining me on the Godcast this week is Brent Peters. Now, Brent is a legend of non-league football with over 25 years managing Bacup Borough, not far away from me in Burnley, and most people in local football will know of Brent Peters. So it's absolutely brilliant to get Brent on the Godcast. How are you doing, Brent?
I'm fine. I'm good, Alex. Thank you.
Now, just before we get down to you, not many people, or some people, will know that I used to be a footy ref. I used to ref non-league, and I've got this here, Brent. I've dug it out from me. This is my award from the 1994 Stanley Cup final, which I'm sure you'll be familiar with over the years.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
I was a Class 2 referee, and the final was meant to be on the Turf Moor, and ended up being at Rosendale United, which I know you had a lot of connections with over the years, didn't you?
I did, yeah. It's sad it's no longer with us, but yeah, I've had some great memories at Rosendale United. I was brought up on the Steggles estate just across the road from a young boy. And as I was growing up, I was my late father was the director of Rosendale United. And I become a ball boy at Rosendale United. So I've had, really good connections. And from a ball boy, I went on to become the reserve team manager. And from the reserve team manager in 1993-94 season, I was appointed as first team manager. So to manage my hometown club and be successful in it along the way as well. I was successful while I was there. It was a great honour and a great achievement for me.
Yeah. Let's just go back a bit, Brent. What was your own football skills like? Were you a successful footballer? Just tell us a bit about your career as a footballer.
Well, at school, I was a footballer at school. I was in the school team. I always got picked in the school team, and I was always picked in the house team. I started off as a right winger, and then as I got slightly older, I went and further back and become a right fullback. But my career kind of started early and finished early, if you will. I was currently on trial at Blackburn Rovers when Ken Furphy, the late Ken Furphy, was the manager at Blackburn Rovers, and I was on trial there, and I had quite a few games for Blackburn Rovers when I suffered a bad injury where I fractured my femur and did my ACL at the same time, which, now they're coming back from ACL injuries, but back in the day that wasn't the case. And it was when I was coming back from that and recovering that Frank Casper, the former Burnley player and Burnley manager, got me into coaching. So I took coaching, and the rest is history. I took the path of, really, I always say that coaching and managing is totally different, two different jobs. But I took the path. I did my coaching qualifications, and then and took the path of managing.
So with Frank Casper, Brent, was that at Burnley or was that down at Bury? Because I know he was down there for a while, wasn't he?
Yeah, it was at Bury. It was when Martin Dobson was appointed the manager of Bury, and he appointed Frank Casper as his first team coach, assistant manager. And it was basically when they was at Bury. I had connections with them because I was close to Paul Fletcher. In fact, I represented Paul Fletcher, another, ex-former Burnley stalwart, and I represented Paul Fletcher on his testimonial committee. So it was that connection, if you will, with Paul that I got to know the likes of Frank Casper and Martin Dobson, Brian Flynn, Stanton Ent, and the like. So Jim Thompson.
Yeah, all legends of Lancashire football, Brent. And were there coaching badges in place in those days, or was it kind of, just talk to us a bit how coaching was then?
The coaching badges were in place, but now where it's like the UEFA A and the UEFA B, and obviously in the professional game you've got your professional license, and there's varying other licenses. Well, back in the day, it was like it was kind of your full license and your prelim license. So that's, and then from that you took your after that, when with UEFA, with the UEFA B and the UEFA, you had to do a conversion course. So from the old full license and the prelim license, you did your conversion course from whichever license you're at to go into the UEFA A license or UEFA B license.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what happened. Yeah.
And if somebody had said to you back then, Brent, that, in 2023, you'll have done over 25 years managing at Bacup Borough, what would a younger Brent Peters made of that?
Well, in September, Alex, it'll be 26 year in September. So I never thought it. I mean, I'm a football person, and I'm passionate, even though my allegiances were always at Rosendale United as a Valley, being brought up on the Steggles estate, and Bacup and Rosendale were strong rivalry back in the day. So my allegiances were always at Rosendale, but being a football man, as I am, it's one of them. When I was approached to come to Bacup, it didn't faze me in any which way, shape, or form. The club was in a complete disarray. It was in the right mess. But I was kind of probably the only time in my football career I was kind of not working for just a short time, and it was in that short time that I just left Doncaster Rovers after keeping them in the old fourth division, because that was kind of the forte from the chairman, is that myself and Curry Dixon, the former England and Chelsea and England footballer, we were told that we had to keep them in with to survive, to stay in the fourth division by at all costs. Thankfully, we did. It was the year. It was, I think it was the first year that when you dropped into non-league football, you come out to the old fourth division and you went into the Conference National. But thankfully, we got out. We got clear of relegation. It was the year that Hereford went down. But there was a lot of problems at Doncaster, so I was I had a successful furniture removal and storage business in the Rosendale Valley, and I was commuting to Doncaster every day apart from Sunday and Thursday. Every other day I was up in Doncaster. Now they were going through a financial, major financial problems, and whilst there was a contract on the table for me to remain at the club and stay the following season, I just felt with the situation that they're in, they were going into administration. It was a lot of uncertainty, so I kind of felt like I owed it to my business and everything, even though it kind of gut wrenched me at the time. So at the end of the season, I decided to make a really tough decision and decided to, feel with the uncertainty to leave Doncaster. So from kind of the start of the new season, I can't remember even the year now. What would it be? 1997 or something like that. The football season started, and it was a month in, and I was kind of like just out to work for that month. And I know at the time that Bacup Borough had suffered a 10-0 defeat, I think, like 10-0 or 10-1 defeat at the hands of Tetley Walker, a football club in Warrington. So some of the lads who were playing at Bacup at the time said to the committee, the chairman, and that, look, listen, Brent Peters isn't working at the minute. Why do you not ask Brent Peters to come and manage us and sort us out? And I remember the late, this is what were told to me, the late Frank Manning, who was a stalwart of Bacup Borough Football Club. He went, Brent Peters ain't going to come here. He said he's managed at You know, he's managed at Rosendale United. He's been at Bury. He's been at Doncaster Rovers. He's not going to come to Bacup Borough. And they went, listen, we know him. I mean, even my son-in-law now, Linton James, not Leighton James, Linton James. He were playing for him at the time, and he said, "Listen, he's a football man. Just go and speak to him." And I remember being out one night in the local public house, the Red Lion at Ayercliff Old in Rosendale, where a lot of the footballers, the Burnley football contingent, some of them used to, frequent there. And I was out there one Saturday night, and lo and behold, Mr. Manning and another director, Graham Schofield, walked into the pub, and the rest is history. They spoke to me, and I basically said, "Listen, I'll come. I'll come and give it. If anything happens, like for instance, I'm ambitious. If there's opportunities come to go back into the football league or a club higher up the pyramid, then basically, that would, that's where I'd be going, as long as you understand that." And they said, "Yeah, no problem, but if you come and just like galvanise us now and get us back on track." So I did, and almost 26 years later, I'm still here.
Just give us an insight, Brent, for people. I think sometimes, not from my perspective, but some people, there's a disconnect between professional football and non-league. So when you say you'll come, I guess there's no 5-year contract on $5,000 a week and a company car. Just give us a bit of the reality of what it's like in management in non-league football.
It's tough because you're dealing with, you haven't got no money. I talk about money being the tools. So basically, when I talk tools, I'm talking money, and there were no money. There is no money, and most of the clubs I'd managed, it's the way of the world. To be able to achieve, say, your goal, if you will, and go to a club where there is money, you've got to serve your apprenticeship down where there isn't money, and then you've got to prove your worth. And it's very, very difficult because, even now, even present day, believe it or believe it not, you're competing against teams that have got absolutely colossal wage bills. So if they've got a colossal wage bill, at the end of the day, they can attract the better players. It goes without saying. If you haven't got a wage bill and you've got very little money, you're struggling to attract the better players. You've got what you've got. You've got lads that, just like a manager or just like your coaches that are starting off. You've got players that are starting off, and that's what you're working with, really. And, you've got to try and galvanise them into a team and make them, kind of structured so they're hard to break down and, hard to get beat. The one thing I say is that, the one thing that players have got to be committed with me are the ones that really work hard. You can't get through success at clubs without the work rate. You've got to put the work rate in.
Yeah, when you talk about that, it's really interesting because I watch North West Counties and I watch any non-league football, but it's very competitive. It's pretty fierce. How do you get the balance then of running a non-league operation with no money, but in a very professional way? Because, if there aren't standards in place, if there isn't some level of expectation, you're going to fail almost on a perennial basis, aren't you? So what's the kind of the ground rules that you set, Brent, at your club?
Well, I always look at it this way. I know I've always used this philosophy, well, certainly since I've been at Bacup, I've always used the philosophy is that I try to manage and run this football club on the template of a football league club, but with no money. And it doesn't cost anything to be professional. You can be professional. It don't cost anything. It's all about preparation. So, let's get it right. If you prepare right, And I'll give you an instance. Like this wasn't with Bacup Borough. This was with Glossop. But when I was manager of Glossop, I'll give you an instance. We got to a cup final, and straight away when we got to this cup final, I went on to I got the lads booked into an hotel, and we had pre-match lunch and everything like the pros would do. And then basically, then from that situation, we went down to we travelled by coach down to where the cup final was being held. I made sure that all my team was all there in jacket, shirt, and tie, as smart as anything. And when we got there, so we looked like really professional. We've come on, we've had a pre-match lunch. We've travelled the short distance on a coach, all together, and we're dressed right, so we're preparing right. When we looked at the opposition that was turning up, they were turning up as though it were any other game, and they've got a bag of the football boots slung over the shoulder and turning up like Reg-Arse Rovers, basically. And that's the difference. That, you know, kind of that's the start. That's the starting point. You know, we've got to be professional, and that transpires into the changing room. So then you've got to be organised, and you've got to be have ground rules in the changing room where basically, you know, I mean, now where people have got mobile phones, they're on them all the time. You know, straight away, I walk in the changing room, straight away it's mobiles off, in your bag, put away. We don't, you know, you don't go near your mobiles. Now we've got to be focused on the game in hand. So then you get into the mindset of the players. You know, you go through everything that you want from them. So at this point, they're focused and they're prepared right. And then you go out, you know, when they cross that white line, it's like in any football match. It's down to them at the end of the day. And you know, if you pick the right, you know, even though they might have not had the pedigree of being you know, playing at the highest level of football or in a football league club or times like that, even though they're not like that, they might be. If you've got a team of workers, I always remember going back to my days when I was at Blackburn Rovers on trial at Blackburn Rovers. I once remember Ken Firth there, who was the first team manager of Blackburn Rovers. He walked into the changing room, and the first thing he said to us all sat there, and it's a fact this, he turned around and he said, "Listen, lads," he said, "I want you to go out there today. I want you to enjoy yourself." He said, "But the most important thing is, I want 11 workers. I don't want 11 George Bests." And it's a fact of life that, you know, George Best was an absolutely fantastic, brilliant player. He was a brilliant. But the thing was, he you know, he turned it on and turned it off. Whereas, you know, yeah, he'd win football matches on his own, but them are few and far between. In team ethics, you want the workers, the people who are going to work hard for you.
I remember doing trials matches down for Burnley, Brent, and I'm sure you know Terry Pashley and Harry Wilson, and I remember these guys getting quite cross with individuals who thought they were superstars and the prima donnas. And I remember one particular instance where they stopped the trials game and these couple of lads got an absolute lashing because they were trying to be the George Bests, and that was clearly not what the guys were seeking. So I think what you're saying is absolutely true, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And that, you know, that's the way it's been for myself. You know, you just instill this into the players. You know, it is what it is. You know, and you just got, if you've got workers and they're prepared to work hard for you. You know, I've got a sign in our changing room as you come out, and it says, "You never fail until you stop trying."
Yeah,
and that's as you leave our changing rooms at Bacup here, that's in full view. You never fail until you stop trying.
Brent, how difficult is it for you to recruit? Because you know, I've always wondered this about how non-league teams go about their recruitment, because I wonder how deep the pool is, and I wonder how extensive the knowledge of the player that you get in, and kind of how much risk comes with signing a player. Could you just tell us a bit about that?
Well, yeah. I mean, in my earlier days at Bacup, there was, you know, people used to say to me, "Why do you not get more local lads in?" And I had a lot of lads coming from all over, like Rochdale, Burnley, round Greater Manchester, Trafford, like Old Trafford and places like that. I had a lot of those. There weren't many local lads. There were some, but there weren't many. And the reason why there wasn't many is it wasn't me that wouldn't give the local lads a chance. I'd give them every chance. But I felt that the lads that were coming in, the more local lads, they weren't committed. They just wanted to play with their mates, and they didn't want the responsibility of being at a football club where there was a lot of discipline. And when I'm talking discipline, I'm talking not discipline off the pitch and preparing for football matches, preparing for a game, playing at a tough level of football, which the Northwest Counties has always been a tough level of football. And then you've got to train twice a week. There's a lot of commitment goes with it. And I used to find that some of the lads coming in that were local, they couldn't cut it. It weren't happening. They didn't want to. It was too hard for them. So they didn't really get the chance because at the end of the day, I don't suffer fools. If you're not going to be committed, you're not good for me. I'm committed in the job that I do. Here at Bacup, I cover every job going at Bacup. So they've got to be committed. And it was thought, then you've got to rely on contacts around the game that know, in my earlier days, not just at Bacup, at Rosendale United, people like the late Walter Joyce helped me out with a few players, like who were probably getting released from Bury at the time, and they point them in my direction. And that's still the same today. I've got great contacts in the game, and they're brilliant because at the end of the day, if they know good players, and I remember one lad got released. He was at Manchester United. A lad called Adrian Bellamy. He was at Manchester United, and then he represented England whilst he was at Manchester United. I think he was like an England schoolboy at 15, and then he went on to captain his country. And like Alex, in football, you can be up there today, but tomorrow you're down there, because injuries could kick in. And then what happens is while you're recovering from injuries, other players come on and they go above you. So you're back in the pecking order. Mm. And Adrian eventually, they had the big future for Adrian Bellamy. They thought a lot about him. And he'd been at Manchester United quite a while. And then what happened where he went out to Bradford. They sent him out on loan. I think it was Bradford City he went to Bradford City. And at the end of his contract, unfortunately, for one reason or another, which happens, sadly it happens, he was getting released. He was no longer going to be a Manchester United player. And like anything, his world fell apart. He was, it really affected him hard. And one of the guys that was very close to him, a lad called David Esdale. Now, when I was assistant manager at Doncaster Rovers, David Esdale played under me at Doncaster Rovers. And David knew Adrian Bellamy. So whilst when he got released and he was down, one of the things that he said to Adrian, Dave Esdale said to him, he said, "Listen, I'm going to introduce you to Brent Peters at Bacup Borough. It's quite a way away from Old Trafford, where he lived. I mean, he lived in Old Trafford." He said, "But listen, I'm going to introduce him." He said, "If anybody can get you back on track, Brent Peters will get you back on track." And Adrian came and played for me, and he was a terrific player for me here, and we had success together here at Bacup, and he soon got a smile back on his face and a spring in his step. But the moral of this story, what I'm trying to say, Alex, is that I got this player because of somebody who knew me, and then obviously somebody who were close to Adrian, and that's happened. That happens a lot.
Yeah. And have you brought many new players in this season, Brent?
Yeah, we brought. it's the same every season. It's like in non-league, it's like a revolving door. It can be a revolving door. I mean, I've got some players that are on contract because I feel that, in this day and age, you've got to if you're trying to progress these players, and in part of the development, it's important that they're on contract, and because what can happen is very, very quickly, if you see a talented lad, if there's a talented lad on the pitch, very, very quickly, a club will put what they call a 7-day notice in of approach to approach him. And then, for a few quid more, they'll jump ship and go to that club. But then my point is the development stops because the club that's taking him want him immediately, the finished article, when he's not the finished article, I'm putting him straight in the team. And when sometimes, and it happens a lot, this is that they can't handle the level above because they're not ready for the level above yet. And sooner or later, they then come back with a tail between the legs and say, can I come back? It hasn't worked out for me. Yeah. And they haven't been the same player when they've come back. Whereas I feel that sometimes players should be comfortable in their settings, not think about the progression, think about the development, and everything else as they are developing will take its course. So eventually, they will be ready and they will be able to sustain playing at a higher level of football.
Yeah. And just to explain the reality of a contract at non-league, Brent, I mean, we're not talking a 5-year deal with a release clause of £100,000, are we? We're talking, I mean, I'm guessing here probably a match day fee of 50-100 quid, something like that.
Yeah, well, this again is my experience. I mean, a lot of managers out there will, when they're writing contracts up, they'll write contracts and just write them up with telephone numbers, if you will. I mean, when I talk about telephone numbers, I'm talking telephone numbers for non-league clubs. Even £100 for a club like Bacup Borough or clubs at our level is a lot of money. If you only need 10 people on 10 players on £100, you're up to £1,000 on your wage bill. So what I'm saying is a lot of managers will go out there and they will put them on these wages. And then when, I'll give you a prime example, when COVID kicked in, they wondered why they were nearly putting the club at risk because they still were obliged to pay them them wages, irrespective. Now, I don't do that. They go in on a small basic. So if there were COVID situation again, it wouldn't kill the club. It wouldn't hurt the club. We'd be able to manage it. So they're on a small basic, but everything, all the top ups are all achieved by what they achieve when they go out onto the football pitch. So you introduce things like after so many games, their money will rise again. Appearance money. So you'll give them so much, when they appear in the starting 11, and then you'll give them something for how the team's performing, like extra on, like if the team win a game of football, they'll get bonus on that situation. So everything's geared to, apart from the basic, everything's geared to what that individual stroke the team are doing. And that will, so when they come out at the end of it, if you're achieving and doing really well, you'll get well looked after. You'll be on good, decent, really good money. But if you're not, then you won't be on good money. That's the reality of it.
Yeah. The other night, Brent, I was down at Paddy and watching Bury play. I was keen to see Bury, and they brought a good following. They, at times, not always, I think Paddy did a good job, but at times the golfing quality looked quite vast. What's your assessment of the standard of your league at this time, Brent? Do you think it's better than it was, or do you think it's the best it's ever been?
I think the Northwest Counties should never be underestimated. This is a really tough league, is the Northwest Counties. I don't get this. The agents in the game let me tell you, there's agents, and I have this thing. I'm old school. I don't agree with the agents in a lot of ways. But the agents in the game, what they do, they see a player, they've got a player on the books, and straight away they don't really want to talk to clubs at our level because the money's not there for the agent and the player to make the money. So what they'll do, they pitch them like at a club like that might be 3 leagues above, where there's half decent money available. But what happens is there's half decent money, but they can't sustain it at that level. They're not ready. So to me, that ruins the player. That stops the player's progression. Whereas I think what they should be doing, if they wanted the player and they're looking after the player, this is the grooming ground. Northwest Counties, let me tell you, is absolutely it's physical. It's competitive. When I say physical, I don't mean good. It's good. I mean, if there a game on here, we had a 0-0 draw against Ashton Athletic last night. It could have gone either way, and it was really blood and thrust. It was cutthroat. Honestly, really competitive. It could have gone, and it ended up where a couple of players got sent off, and if you ever want an exciting 0-0 draw, last night's game was one of them. But that typifies the Northwest Counties League.
Yeah.
It's a really, there's quality, there's ability, but there's aggression. And I look at it this way: you've got to be, if all this, like in the Premier League, I call it Subbuteo football. You watch it, and it's like we'll get in a block. You've got the ball, try and break us down, right? And then they give the ball away, so they drop off. They get in a block. You've got the ball now, try and break us down. It's like that. Whereas in the Northwest, it's not. It's really, really physical, competitive. Probably you saw that the other night when you went down and watched Paddy.
Very much, yeah, very much so.
Extremely positive, physical and demanding. And that's why I say it's a great group. Do not underestimate the Northwest Counties League because it is a tough league. And it's no surprise if you look back through the history and the archives of the teams that's really struggled to get out of the Northwest Counties League to go up into the next level, up into the Evo Stick League, right? You'll find that they've usually, in a lot of cases, gone up again because they've kept the nucleus of the Northwest Counties League side. And then when they've gone into the Evo Stick, which is not as physical, not as demanding in that respect, and when they've gone up and they end up going up again because I kind of think it's not as hard in the Evo Stick as it is in the Northwest Counties.
Yeah, I mean, I love non-league. I loved it. I love reffing in it. I love being part of it. It's a bit of it's a community really, and the banter is just on another level. I mean, I took some real pelters as a ref, but I never took it personally. But Brent, what's the ambition for Bacup Borough as we come to the end of this chat? Is it right and correct that a club like Bacup is ambitious and has goals to achieve?
Any club I manage, you're ambitious. I won't be at the club if we weren't ambitious, but we've got to be feet on the ground. You can't. One thing I always said, even though when I started off in my football career, would Bacup Borough have been a club many years ago that I'd have joined? Possibly not, because there are clubs out there that probably don't have the infrastructure to show that ambition, to give you that ambition. The fact of the matter is here, with Bacup, with me kind of at the helm and guiding it along the way, I would never allow my CV to run the risk because of personal gain, run the risk of a club's history going out of existence because you kind of overspending, if you will, which happens. I would not put this club at risk rather just for personal gain in my CV for being successful. So the main thing is, yes, we're successful. Yes, we want to go up as high up as we can really achieve in the National League system. But to do that, you need the tools, and the tools is finance. And if you haven't got the finance, then somebody said to me, BBC, I think it were, that did an interview with me on my 25 years. And one of the things they said, what's your greatest achievement? Now, if you look round, I've had success in every football club I've managed. I've put silverware in the cabinet. But what my answer were to what is your greatest success? And I turned around and said, waking up every morning and knowing that Bacup Borough is history of Bacup Borough Football Club is still there. It's still alive. It's still kicking. When you think about other clubs that have been challenging this club over the years, like Rosendale United, who are no longer here, that means more to me, and that's more of an achievement than putting any silverware in any trophy cabinet, because this club should be here long after I've gone.
And I suppose that's probably a good way to bring the interview to an end, Brent, is because, I remember Rosendale folding, and I know that was heartbreaking, not for hundreds of thousands of people, but for the community it was attached to. That was a devastating blow. And you've been in the game long enough, and you're not getting any younger. So if you've got a succession plan at Bacup, do you know what will happen when you close the door for the final time?
100%. I know exactly what's happening. It's all there, tied up, wills and everything with the solicitors, and the Bacup Borough there is no issues with Bacup Borough. Bacup Borough will go and continue to achieve things in good, capable hands along the way. The future is that's what it's all about. It's long after I've gone, it's important that this club and the history of this great club continues. And because you think about, it's brought so many. There's been a lot of people in the community. Some have passed, who've gone, and it's only a couple of weeks ago we lost our president, Edwin Crook. And so it's important that we go on in the next generation and the generation after. And for that means, people have always said, if anything happened to Brent, what had happened to the club? Believe you me, the club will be left in good hands.
Brent, I've interviewed some of the great names in football, some international top professionals, but I put you in that category. It's been a real privilege meeting you and talking to you, because I value what you do so much. And without guys like you, and I know there's lots of guys like you knocking around the non-league, the future of football in this country would be in dire straits. So I genuinely mean it, Brent. Thanks for what you do in local football. It's a passion that is admired by so many people, and just thank you so much for coming in and having a chat with me on the Godcast. Thank you.
Thanks, Alex, for inviting me. Thank you.